It's been a busy week in the Inland Northwest, so let's get you caught up with the KREM 2 News Week in Review. I'm Cody Proctor. Thanks for being here with us. Over the next half hour, we'll take a look back at some of the news you might have missed from the past week. So let's get started with one of the biggest stories from the Inland Northwest.
In a letter Monday, Gonzaga President Thane McCullough announced the federal government revoked visas for 2 of GU's international students. As many universities are now reporting, they're stumbling on these discoveries without any heads up from the government. From California to Arizona,
was a violation of the Constitution.
Minneapolis to Spokane, international student visas are being canceled. Many of these revocations done without the federal government alerting the school. That was the case at Gonzaga, according to President Thane McCullough. In a letter sent Monday, he announced 2 international students' records were wiped and visas revoked, a change only discovered during a regular review of a federal database. Gonzaga leadership declined an interview Tuesday, saying the letter serves as its statement for now. GU didn't give a reason for the revocations, if there is one, citing student privacy. But the Trump administration has been pretty clear why some of these revocations are happening.
We have a right to deny your visa. I think it would make sense to deny your visa. We're going to err on the side of caution. We are not going to be importing activists into the United States. They're here to study. They're here to go to class. They're not here to lead activist movements.
In a January executive order, President Trump stated he'd revoke visas of all students who protested against Israel and the war in Gaza.
Free Palestine!
Gonzaga students and faculty held several pro-Palestinian protests last year. GU isn't the only Northwest school to see student visas canceled. 9 University of Washington students and recent grads had their legal documents pulled, according to UW, due to immigration status violation. UW said no additional details were provided, but said there's no indication these cancellations were due to activism. There are reports tonight at least 2 University of Idaho students in the country for school have also been impacted, but U of I did not return our request for information Tuesday. And tonight we have just learned a post-grad student at Washington State University had their visa revoked, according to a university spokesperson, but they say that student chose to leave the country in December. Eastern Washington University says it is checking its student records on the database daily. So far, no current students have been affected. Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.
In continuing coverage this week.
Well, dozens of people gathered here at Glen Terrell Mall at WSU to use their voice and speak up against the potential funding loss of research, healthcare, and education, both state and nationwide.
The funding challenges we're facing are real and they're multi-layered.
On the steps of Todd Hall Tuesday afternoon, a local union for academic student workers at Washington State University organized a demonstration in correlation to National Take Action Day to voice concerns over potential state and federal funding loss.
And we will fight back.
WSU grad student Brown and Valentine worries about the potential funding loss and the inevitable domino effect it will have not just on the university, but the country.
That is affecting our ability to do our research, our ability to have decent quality of lives, and to really do what we're here to do, which is help people and create meaningful research.
I will say that the changes have been coming fast.
University spokesperson Phil Weiler says he shares concerns with the students about the university's future funding.
Some people have sort of described it as universities being in a vice here in the state of Washington. We're losing those federal dollars and potentially losing those state dollars as well.
Weiler says on a federal level, WSU has already seen a reduction of $5 million in support from National Institutes of Health grants. If other reductions follow suit, the university could lose close to $23.5 million annually. On a state level, Washington is dealing with a projected budget deficit of $16 billion over the next 4 years. Right now, the state is trying to figure out how it's going to make up that loss, which could put funding for public universities in jeopardy, particularly because these schools are primarily funded by state dollars.
If there are reductions in our state appropriations, it's going to impact our ability to provide service to the community.
WSU already initiated a hiring freeze, among other things, to save as much money as possible. Weiler says despite the future being uncertain, the university will continue its mission of helping students achieve academic success. Christian Garza, KREM 2 News.
KREM 2 News is committed to bring you more to every story. Here now, a deeper look behind the headline.
Staff received a reduction in force notice in their email, saying management would be dismissed immediately and the rest would end their roles on June 30th.
In my opinion, this is going to be some dark days that history will look back on. That this is when the government turned its back on the workers of America.
This layoff is a part of a federal restructure of the HHS. Associated Press reports about 10,000 employees face layoffs, with about 850 of those within NIOSH.
We've got industrial hygienists, epidemiologists, doctors, engineers, scientists of varying backgrounds, technicians, machinists. It's a lot of people here.
The union that represents these workers say NIOSH is the only federal agency that conducts health and safety research, which will impact mining, fishing, agriculture, forest service, and epidemiology.
It's been hectic. We've got people that have no idea what they're supposed to be doing, who they report to, and with the administrative leave that so many people have been put on, it's put everybody on eggshells.
This lab in Spokane does work across the western United States and in Alaska. Locally, projects are happening in mines across North Idaho.
We have everything from geophysicists going to coal mines in Utah and Colorado to engineers working on corrosion issues.
And the union says they prepare for more unprecedented surprises. There are still lingering concerns that they have about what will happen to the safety work they do across many industries.
As we go to break, here's a check of your weekend forecast. Welcome back to the KREM 2 News Week in Review. Each weekend, we walk you through headlines from the past week in the inland Northwest. Now to an update on the Moscow murders case.
After 4 University of Idaho students, Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were murdered in their college house in 2022, the main suspect, Brian Kohberger, and his team are deciding what should be presented in front of a jury. A key argument from today's hearing, if the surviving roommate labeled as DM should testify. DM identified Kohberger in a selfie after the murders, noting his bushy eyebrows matched the suspect in the house. The defense argues her claims are misleading because they say she was under the influence.
Then that night before she got home, she was involved in a drinking game and drank Borg, which is hard alcohol and flavoring. Her degree of attention given this supports unreliability.
There's no grounds to exclude this testimony. DM's the only living individual who saw the person responsible for these 4 homicides. Her description of the male, including any characteristics such as bushy eyebrows, is relevant to the identity of the killer.
Here's a look at 3 other of the main arguments over which evidence should be admitted at trial.
These murders, whoever committed them, were brutal and were horrific. And so I suspect that the evidence will reflect that.
1, such as which calls and text messages should be presented. The defense challenges the 911 call made by the surviving roommate's phones, arguing it contains hearsay. But prosecutors say the call qualifies as an excited utterance under Idaho rules of evidence and should be played during trial. 2, other evidence in question involves DNA. Investigators say a K-bar sheath knife with Kohberger's DNA was found on scene. This knife matches a purchase Kohberger made on Amazon, but the defense states it could have been planted. 3, the defense showed concern over alleged surveillance of Kohberger's Hyundai Elantra. The defense argues the video surveillance cannot prove that the suspect vehicle in surveillance videos is Kohberger's. Other things noted is if Kohberger is found guilty, prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty. And during trial, the defense asked the judge if they could avoid words like psychopath, sociopath, and murderer from being used in front of the jury.
So that would also go with the term murder, I think, to the extent that it reaches a conclusion that the defendant committed murder.
The first of the two proposed amendments looks to keep girls' sports participation limited to students born biologically female, while the other would pave the way for an open division for transgender athletes to play sports according to their gender identity if it's different from the one they were born as. But now, those votes, according to the WIAA, will be advisory only and won't be implemented under current state law. WIAA Director of Communications Sean Bissett says the change happened within the last couple of weeks when the association got word from the state attorney general's office, the state office for civil rights, and Washington's office of superintendent of public instruction. The proposed amendments would violate current state law. In a statement, the organization says in part, the WIAA remains committed to following state law, and those amendments focused on gender identity participation would not be implemented on August 1st if they were to pass under current state law.
Go!
They go on to say if state law were to change, the WIAA's executive board has the authority and would need to alter the association's rules accordingly. The move comes just 2 months after President Trump signed an executive order seeking to ban transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. The WIAA votes on all 16 proposed amendments starting this Wednesday.
Spokane Riverkeeper alleges that this Purina Mills facility site is allowing industrial pollution into the Spokane River, which they say is in violation of the Clean Water Act. Now, the lawsuit also claims that Purina failed to collect or submit required discharge monitoring data and stormwater prevention measures.
Spokane Riverkeeper just rounded out their 2024 cleanup efforts, where they cleaned up over 67,000 pounds of trash in the Spokane River. They say their research reveals the Purina Mills facility is not following the Clean Water Act protocol for water runoff, which this raises concerns about the substances coming from the building.
It should have some cleanup measures in place to prevent the grain and oil and grease and dirt and everything from entering our watershed.
Now, the nonprofit has filed an official complaint with the U.S. District Court for Eastern Washington. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency says the Clean Water Act establishes a basic structure to control pollution in surface water.
Zinc and oil and grease from big heavy trucks driving on the site, sediment and dirt running off the dirt parking lot. Things like that the water, when it rains, it picks up all kinds of different pollutants as it runs across the site and enters the storm drains.
The Department of Ecology did confirm with KREM 2 the facility does have industrial stormwater permit coverage, which limits the amount of pollution that drains into bodies of water. But they would not comment further on the case at this time. Scott says Purina has 30 days to respond. She did note their legal team has been cooperative in the process, but a lawsuit keeps the company accountable.
And these types of cases are really a core piece of our mission in protecting the river and ensuring that polluters are held accountable where we can hold them accountable.
Now, this Purina site in Spokane is actually owned by Land O'Lakes, not the national brand that we know as Purina. We did reach out to them multiple times today for comment and are still awaiting to hear their response. I'm reporting right here at Trent Avenue in Spokane, Regan Gallo, KREM 2 News.
Thanks for joining KREM 2 News this weekend. I'm Cody Proctor. Right now, we're taking a look back at some of the news stories from the past week. In the latest Boomtown news.
Well, it's no secret Spokane needs more housing. The city is already taking steps to begin meeting that demand. So when the Spokane Business Association announced 1,000 new residential units in downtown Spokane, that tells city leaders things are on the right track.
Buildings like these in downtown Spokane come with a rich history.
I'm guessing they were the old school safe deposit boxes for people.
And now these old buildings are part of history in the making.
These historic buildings, I think, have a way of kind of saving downtown, not just once, not just twice, but time and again.
Gavin Cooley with the Spokane Business Association found downtown Spokane has more than 1,000 new residential units, some of which are historic buildings being turned into housing. SBA did the math and found nearly 550 units are completed, while 504 are slated to open between now and the summer of 2026. They include the Spokane Falls Tower condominiums on the North Bank, KOZ apartments at 4th and 5th Avenue, and the historic Peyton building.
The brick will stay on either side, and then we'll actually put it in so that this will be a feature.
Jordan Tampion is the developer behind renovations at the Peyton building, a project he says has a full circle story.
The original use of the Peyton building was actually housing until it burned down in the late 1800s and then was built back, keeping the exterior walls only, into office, which it was kind of predominantly used to all the way up to this point. So I feel like we're actually just bringing it kind of back to its original use.
Once renovations are complete, the Peyton Lofts will offer 96 units in downtown Spokane. Developers expect these units will be ready for residents to start moving in as early as summer 2026.
If I would have had an option like this, I would have worked down here, lived down here, would have built community down here. And I think now this will be one of many options.
He says this vision is coming to fruition thanks to the city's efforts to streamline the permitting process.
So now we're starting to see the fruits of that work.
In fact, data shared by the city shows a growing number of issued permits for residential units. Just last year, the city issued a record year total of more than 1,400 permits.
We need more housing. It's the solution to a lot of our problems right now.
While Spokane faces a historic need for housing, new and old spaces are stepping in to help meet that demand.
The Spokane Business Association says with more people living downtown, that means more business for local shops, a result the SBA and its members are looking forward to. In the newsroom, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
Welcome back to the KREM 2 News, a week in review. I hope you're having a great weekend. Let's get back to one more story you might have missed this past week.
I was a wolf bio with Montana State for 2 years before coming to Washington.
Now, Shoop Bhattacharjee works as the wolf and grizzly bear policy lead for the Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife, overseeing the wolf team. If there's one way he describes the state's wolf population,
Washington wolf population is a recovering population. It's a growing population.
but that recovery appears to have hit a speed bump. WDFW released their latest wolf population numbers this past weekend. In it, the report shows the state's wolf numbers dropped for the first time in 16 years from 254 in 2023 to 230 last year. Breeding numbers also dropped. However, pack numbers went up by 1. Despite the drop, Bhattacharjee isn't worried, saying this is normal for a wildlife population.
Human population, you may have always an upward direction other than if there is a huge catastrophe. But wildlife population is different. They have ups and downs, like continual ups and downs in their populations.
But he is concerned about poaching, which contributed to the drop. According to Fish and Wildlife, of the 37 wolves that died last year, 7 were poached.
Our poaching rate is definitely higher. We had over the years 4 to 6% of known collared being poached, but this year it is around 11%.
Another reason for the drop are wolves leaving the state.
They either went northward towards Canada, British Columbia, or towards east towards Idaho, and then southward to Oregon.
One thing to keep in mind, according to Fish and Wildlife's report, is these numbers are minimum counts, meaning the total number of wolves in Washington is likely higher.
Do you have any concerns about these numbers?
No. Washington Wolves is really doing well.
Keep it here for more news and weather updates throughout the weekend. And don't forget, you can watch our latest newscasts anytime on your schedule on KREM 2+. Download and watch right now for free. I'm Cody Proctor. Thank you for watching KREM 2 News Week in Review.